In a world where people constantly demand pieces of you, your time, your energy, your identity, most people start shrinking. They dim their light so others feel comfortable, they silence their voice so no one feels threatened, and they hold themselves back just to keep the peace. But here is the truth. The universe keeps trying to show you. Your life will not transform until you stop apologizing for who you are. The moment you stop shrinking to fit inside the spaces others created for you, your reality begins to expand. The moment you stop making yourself small so others can feel big, your power finally returns home. This video is a reminder of the strength you have buried under years of silence, self-doubt, and people-pleasing. Today, you take it back. 1. You were never born to make yourself smaller. Most people move through life without realizing how much they've been shrinking themselves just to survive. It starts with small moments. You say, "It's okay," even when something hurts you. You say, "I don't mind," even when you do. You stop expressing your needs because you're afraid someone will call you demanding. You hold back your ideas because you don't want to look too ambitious in a room full of people who gave up on their dreams. You pretend you need less love, less respect, less attention, less effort, just to avoid conflict or rejection. What begins as one small compromise becomes a pattern, and that pattern becomes a habit. Without even noticing, you slowly disappear inside your own life. And the tragedy is this: you start believing the smaller version of you is the real you. You convince yourself that asking for more is wrong. You convince yourself that wanting better is selfish. You convince yourself that staying silent is easier than being misunderstood. But deep down, something inside you knows the truth. You were never born to be small. You came into this world with a voice meant to be used, with instincts meant to guide you, with a creative fire meant to expand your world, not shrink it. Shrinking is not humility, it is self-abandonment. It is the slow, quiet act of erasing your own existence to make other people more comfortable. Every time you hide a truth to protect someone else's ego, you are sacrificing your own growth. Every time you soften your personality so someone insecure doesn't feel threatened, you are dimming a light that was never meant to be dimmed. And every time you betray your own needs to be accepted, you teach your mind that your happiness is negotiable. But here is the universal law you cannot escape. The universe cannot reward a version of you that isn't real. Your blessings require your authenticity. Your opportunities require your courage. Your breakthroughs require your fullness. Life will not open doors for someone who keeps pretending to be half of themselves. The things meant for you are waiting, but they are waiting for the real you, the bold you, the honest you, the expanded you. You do not need to shrink to fit into places you have outgrown. You do not need to make yourself small to be loved. You do not need to hide your strength to make others feel safe. Your existence is not too loud, too much, or too inconvenient. You simply forgot your power because you spent too long dimming it. Now is the moment you stop apologizing for your light and start stepping into the life that belongs to you. 2. Your energy changes when you stop lowering yourself for others. There comes a moment in life when you realize your energy has been dimmed, not by fate, not by failure, but by the constant pressure to make yourself smaller for the comfort of others. You start noticing how often you lower your voice so someone else doesn't feel challenged. You notice how you hide your intelligence, your ambition, your dreams, because certain people around you get uncomfortable when you shine. You notice how you downplay your accomplishments because you don't want to be called proud or arrogant. And slowly, this becomes a habit of shrinking your energy to match rooms that were never built for who you truly are. But energy is powerful. It responds instantly the moment you decide to stop lowering yourself. The moment you stop apologizing for your confidence, your presence changes. The moment you stop pretending you don't care, your focus sharpens. The moment you stop dimming your potential so others don't feel insecure, a new version of you begins to awaken. You feel different. You stand taller. You speak with clarity. You walk with intention. You stop tolerating disrespect disguised as jokes. You stop saying yes when your soul screams no. You stop allowing people who drain you to stay in your life simply because you're afraid to disappoint them. This shift in energy is not small, it is life-altering. And here's the truth. The moment your energy rises, the world around you rearranges itself. People who relied on your silence will pull away because your voice exposes them. People who benefited from your insecurity will step back because your confidence no longer feeds their ego. People who only respected you when you were weak will suddenly act distant because your strength makes them confront their own lack of growth. This is not a loss. This is alignment. When you stop lowering your energy, you begin attracting what matches your true frequency. Opportunities that once felt out of reach suddenly appear because you finally feel worthy of them. Relationships that were built on your weakness fall away and make space for connections built on mutual respect. Your environment begins to adjust to your new internal standard. You move from being tolerated to being valued. You move from being overlooked to being recognized. You move from seeking approval to choosing peace. You must understand something deeply. Your energy teaches the world how to treat you. When your energy is low, you attract people who take advantage of that. When your energy is high, you attract people who rise with you. The moment you stop lowering yourself to fit in, you naturally begin to stand out. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, but because authenticity is rare, and when someone walks in their truth, it shows. This is why your life begins to shift when your energy shifts. Your mind becomes clearer because you no longer waste it overthinking what others think of you. Your body feels lighter because you no longer carry the emotional weight of pretending. Your heart feels stronger because you finally honor your own needs without guilt. And your spirit feels free because it is no longer trapped inside a version of you created for other people's comfort. When you stop lowering your energy, you step into a world where you no longer live in reaction to others. You start living in alignment with yourself. And that is the moment your entire reality begins to transform. 3. You lose yourself when you try to be who they want you to be. There is a silent, exhausting battle that almost everyone fights, but few people ever speak about. The pressure to become the version of yourself that others find acceptable. It begins in small ways. You adjust your tone so you don't sound too emotional. You hold back your opinions so you don't appear too strong. You laugh at things that don't amuse you just to avoid being labeled too serious. You shrink your dreams so no one calls you unrealistic. And little by little, you start reshaping yourself into a character built for other people's comfort, not your own growth. But here is the painful truth. Every time you shapeshift for approval, you carve away a piece of your identity. You begin to forget what you actually think, what you actually want, what actually matters to you. You start confusing your real desires with the desires others planted in your mind. You start performing instead of living, and soon you look in the mirror and feel disconnected from the person staring back at you, not because you have no identity, but because you've been hiding it under layers of false compliance. Trying to be who others want you to be is a slow form of self-erasure. It drains your spirit, weakens your confidence, and kills your passion. You begin to feel tired all the time, not from physical exhaustion, but from the emotional weight of pretending to be okay, pretending to be unbothered, pretending to be someone who fits into a world you never truly belonged to. Your soul knows when you are lying to yourself, and it responds with restlessness, frustration, and emptiness. People don't realize how dangerous it is to abandon themselves for acceptance. You stop choosing what makes you happy and start choosing what makes others comfortable. You silence your dreams because someone once told you they were too big. You hide your talent because someone felt threatened by your potential. You stay in relationships where you feel unseen because you're scared no one else will choose you. And without noticing, you build a life based not on your truth, but on your fear. But here's the power you forgot you have. The moment you stop performing for others, you come back to yourself. When you stop filtering your personality to match their expectations, your real voice returns. When you stop pretending you don't care, your passion reignites. When you stop sacrificing your identity to avoid disappointing people, you finally make room for joy, peace, and authenticity. The truth is, people who need you to shrink in order to stay in your life were never meant to be there in the first place. The right people do not fear your honesty. They do not punish your individuality. They do not require you to dim your fire so they can feel warm. Real connections grow in the presence of truth, not pretense. And here's something even deeper. Your purpose cannot be fulfilled by a fake version of you. Life will not open the doors meant for your destiny if you keep showing up as a watered-down reflection of yourself. The universe moves in alignment, not illusion. Until you return to your real identity, your real soul, your real voice, your real energy, your blessings will remain out of reach. The world does not need another copy. It needs you raw, imperfect, powerful, whole. The moment you stop trying to be who they want you to be, you begin the journey back to the person you were always meant to become. And that version of you is the one life has been waiting for all along. 4. People who fear your growth will try to pull you back. One of the hardest truths you will ever face on your journey of self-growth is this: not everyone will be happy to see you rise. In fact, some of the people you cared about the most, friends, relatives, co-workers, even partners, may be the first to feel threatened when you begin changing for the better. At first, it will confuse you. You will wonder why people who once said they loved you suddenly act distant, irritated, or dismissive when you start improving your life. But as your awareness grows, you begin to understand something important. Your growth confronts people with the parts of themselves they have been avoiding for years. When you start healing, you unintentionally expose their refusal to heal. When you start setting boundaries, you reveal the ways they took advantage of your lack of boundaries. When you become confident, their insecurities start shaking. And when you begin to rise, they feel the uncomfortable reminder that they chose to stay the same. This is why they react the way they do, not because you're doing something wrong, but because your evolution forces them to face truths they'd rather ignore. People who fear your growth will try to hold you back in subtle, almost invisible ways. They won't always attack you directly. Instead, they will use small comments that poison your confidence. You've changed. Don't get too ahead of yourself. You're acting different. You think you're better than us now. Or, why are you trying so hard? These statements are not reflections of your behavior, they are reflections of their discomfort. They prefer the old version of you, the one who didn't question them, the one who accepted less, the one who didn't challenge their sense of superiority. You must understand that many people were comfortable with you only as long as you remained predictable. They liked you small, humble, insecure, and easy to influence. They liked the version of you that depended on them, that needed reassurance, that tolerated disrespect without reacting. But the moment you begin growing into your true power, the dynamic shifts. Your self-respect disrupts their control. Your clarity exposes their manipulation. Your new standards highlight their lack of effort, and your courage makes their excuses look weak. When you rise, the truth is revealed. Some people never loved you, they loved the power they had over the weaker version of you. But this is not a reason to shrink yourself, it is a reason to rise even more. People who fear your growth will also try to guilt-trip you into staying small. They will say you're acting selfish for prioritizing your mental health. They will say you're changing too fast when you start protecting your peace. They will say you're cold when you stop accepting their disrespect. But none of these things mean you are wrong. Growth will always look threatening to those who have refused to grow. Your expansion will always feel like abandonment to those who benefited from your old limitations. And here is something powerful you must remember. If someone tries to pull you back, it means you are already rising. No one tries to drag down someone who is already on the ground. The resistance you feel from people is confirmation that you are stepping out of the version of yourself they cannot control anymore. It's important to recognize that not everyone who walks with you is meant to walk with you forever. Some people are chapters, not the whole story. Some people arrive to teach you lessons, not to grow with you. And some people simply cannot follow you into the next stage of your life because your future requires a level of honesty, discipline, and self-awareness they are not ready to embody. Do not dim your growth to save relationships that only survived because you were shrinking. Do not stay small to make insecure people comfortable. Do not hold back your evolution because someone else refuses to evolve. The people who truly belong in your life will not fear your growth. They will rise with you. They will celebrate your breakthroughs instead of competing with them. They will be inspired by your strength instead of threatened by it. And they will support the highest version of you, not the one you became to make them feel safe. Your journey forward will require leaving behind the places, the habits, and sometimes the people who only knew how to love a lesser version of you. But that is the price of elevation. What you gain is far greater than what you lose. You gain your voice back, your identity back, your confidence back, your purpose back, and most importantly, you gain the freedom to become who you were always meant to be. Rising will cost you some people, but shrinking will cost you yourself. Always choose yourself. 5. Your blessings unlock when you stop shrinking your dreams. One of the greatest tragedies in life is how many people never experience the full reality they are capable of creating, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunities, but because they learn to shrink their dreams to fit inside other people's expectations. From a young age, you are taught what is realistic, what is acceptable, what is practical. And slowly, without noticing, you reduce the size of your dream until it feels small enough to carry without judgment from others. You convince yourself that wanting more is somehow wrong, that dreaming big makes you arrogant, that aiming high makes people uncomfortable, and so you lower your dream again and again until it becomes something even your fear can handle. But here is the truth few people ever realize. Your blessings live in the same place as your courage, not in your comfort zone. Not in your fear, not in the version of you who keeps herself smaller so no one else feels insecure. Your blessings live in the wide, open space where your full potential is allowed to breathe. Every time you shrink your dream, you shrink your destiny. You disconnect from the path the universe designed for you, the path that only the boldest version of you can walk. And the saddest part is you don't even realize what you're losing. You don't see the opportunities that were waiting outside the cage you built for yourself. You don't see the relationships that would have met you at your highest level. You don't see the life you could have lived if you allowed yourself to step into your true magnitude. The universe responds to clarity, not hesitation. When you tell the universe, "I want more," but your actions show fear, confusion, or self-doubt, your blessings cannot fully manifest, not because they're denied to you, but because they require a version of you that is not afraid of growth. You cannot receive big blessings with a small self-image. You cannot walk into abundance while you still cling to scarcity. You cannot hold the life meant for you while your hands are gripping the comfort of the old you. Your dream does not shrink to meet you. You expand to meet your dream. And that expansion begins the moment you stop diluting your vision to make others feel comfortable. The moment you stop asking for permission to be who you already are inside. The moment you stop explaining why your dream matters. The moment you stop apologizing for wanting a life that is more meaningful, more fulfilling, more extraordinary than others believe is possible. Understand this deeply. People who dream small will always question those who dream big. They will try to talk you out of your goals, not because your dreams are impossible, but because your ambition exposes the limitations they placed on themselves. When you reach for more, you show them what they refuse to reach for. When you grow, you force them to confront their own stagnation, and instead of facing their fear, they criticize yours. This is why you must protect your dream from small thinkers. Do not share your vision with people who only know how to shrink things. Do not seek validation from those who quit on their own dreams years ago. And do not expect support from people who cannot even imagine the level of reality you are trying to create. Your dream is sacred. Treat it like something sacred. When you allow yourself to dream fully, without apology, something powerful begins to shift inside you. You walk differently because you finally have direction. You think differently because you finally have purpose. You speak differently because you finally believe in something beyond your limitations. Your energy changes, your behavior upgrades, and your choices align with your future, not your past. This is when your blessings begin to find you because you finally stepped into the frequency where they exist. Blessings do not come to those who shrink. They come to those who expand. They come to those who dare. They come to those who outgrow their excuses. They come to those who refuse to let fear kill their potential. Every time you stop shrinking your dream, a new door opens. A new opportunity appears. A new version of you comes alive. That is how life works. You step forward, and life steps forward to meet you. You commit, and blessings commit to you. You rise, and abundance rises with you. You were never meant to live a life defined by the limits of others. You were meant to create a reality that reflects the magnitude of your soul. Your dream is not too big. Your self-doubt is too loud. Silence it. Stand tall. Expand your vision, and watch how quickly your blessings align the moment you stop shrinking yourself to fit the world. Your dream is the doorway. Your courage is the key. And your true life begins the moment you stop hiding what you're capable of. 6. When you stop shrinking, your standards rise automatically. One of the most transformative shifts that happens when you stop holding yourself down is the silent but powerful rise of your standards. Most people think standards are something you consciously set, like rules you write on paper. But the truth is far deeper. Standards rise from the inside out. They change the moment you change. They elevate themselves the moment you refuse to accept a smaller version of your life. When you stop shrinking your identity, your worth, and your voice, your mind naturally begins to reject everything that once felt normal to you. The friendships that drained you begin to feel heavy. The conversations that used to entertain you begin to feel empty. The relationships where you begged for attention suddenly look embarrassing. The opportunities you once chased now feel beneath the level of effort you bring. It is not arrogance, this is alignment. You begin to realize that you were not asking for too much. You were asking for the wrong people. You were not expecting too much from life. You simply lowered your standards to match what others were willing to give. When you shrink yourself, you accept crumbs because you are convinced that crumbs are all you deserve. You tolerate disrespect because you are afraid to lose people. You allow toxic behavior because you fear being alone. You settle for halfway love because somewhere inside you, you believed full love was not for you. But the moment you stop shrinking your worth, something shifts so deeply inside you that you can no longer tolerate the things that once felt acceptable. You stop explaining yourself to people who don't listen. You stop trying to prove your value to those who never intended to see it. You stop giving second chances to behavior that deserved none. You stop investing energy in places where the return is always pain. Your heart becomes less willing to carry people who refuse to carry themselves. Your mind becomes sharper about what drains you and what builds you. Your soul becomes allergic to anything that disrupts your peace. This is the rise of standards, and it happens naturally, effortlessly, automatically. Not because you force it, but because you have changed on a level that cannot be reversed. When your standards rise, your life begins to reorganize itself. You leave conversations that go nowhere. You step out of circles that do not respect growth. You stop accepting the bare minimum from anyone, including yourself. You stop chasing people who walked away from you without thinking twice. You stop holding on to relationships that require you to abandon your values in order to keep them alive. You stop tolerating chaos just because you are used to it. And you stop calling pain normal simply because it is familiar. You begin demanding clarity because you finally understand your worth. You begin choosing peace because you finally understand the cost of drama. You begin prioritizing your mental health because you finally feel responsible for your future. Standards are not about being picky, they are about protecting your energy so your life can't fall apart again. As your standards rise, some people will call you difficult, distant, or changed. But what they are truly saying is this: you no longer tolerate the behavior I used to get away with. They miss the version of you who kept forgiving what hurt you. They miss the version of you who ignored their disrespect just to maintain harmony. They miss the version of you who accepted chaos as love and inconsistency as affection. But that version of you is gone, and it is not coming back. You must understand something powerful. Every time you raise your standards, you close the door to a past life that was killing your potential. You create space for relationships that are real. You create space for opportunities that match your growth. You create space for experiences that elevate your spirit instead of draining it. When your standards rise, your future becomes brighter, not because the world changes, but because you finally refuse to enter rooms that dim your light. Rising standards do not make your life smaller, they make it cleaner. They remove everything that was blocking your progress, everything that distracted your path, everything that kept you repeating the same emotional cycles. What remains after that cleansing is your true life. The one you were meant to live before fear convinced you to settle. And here's the most important truth: your standards will never rise unless you rise first. You cannot demand loyalty while accepting betrayal. You cannot demand honesty while tolerating lies. You cannot expect peace while choosing people who thrive in chaos. Your external life will always mirror your internal standard. When you expect little, you receive little. When you expect respect, you receive respect. When you expect alignment, you receive alignment. The universe meets you at the level you meet yourself. This is why you must stop shrinking, because shrinking lowers your standards, and lowered standards create a life that suffocates your potential. But rising restores your worth, sharpens your clarity, strengthens your boundaries, and pulls your future toward you with a force you can't deny. Your standards are rising because you are rising, and nothing in your life will be the same again. 7. When you rise, your reality rises with you. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize the world around them is not something fixed, immovable, or unchangeable. It is something that bends, shifts, shapes, and reshapes itself according to who you believe yourself to be. Most people never discover this truth because they spend their entire lives shrinking. They shrink their personality, shrink their opinions, shrink their dreams, shrink their expectations, and shrink their worth. And when you shrink yourself, your reality shrinks with you. Your opportunities shrink, your relationships shrink, your future shrinks, your confidence shrinks. Life begins to feel small not because life is small, but because you are living in a smaller version of yourself. But everything changes the moment you rise. The moment you decide you are done being the background character in your own story. The moment you decide to live as the full, unfiltered, unapologetic version of yourself. The version you buried under fear, doubt, guilt, trauma, and the pressure to please others. When you rise into your real self, your entire reality begins to shift in ways that feel almost magical. Your thoughts change first. You no longer think like a person who is trying to survive. You begin thinking like a person who is ready to build, to create, to attract. You stop interpreting everything as a threat and start seeing everything as a possibility. Your mind becomes clearer because you are no longer tangled in self-doubt. You begin challenging old beliefs that once controlled your life, and suddenly, the limits you thought were permanent begin to crumble. Then, your behavior changes. You walk differently, not arrogantly, but with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing you no longer betray yourself to keep others comfortable. You speak differently not to impress, but because your voice no longer shakes with insecurity. You choose differently. Your decisions come from purpose, not fear. You stop chasing people who never valued you. You stop begging for love you don't need to beg for. You stop apologizing for your boundaries, your growth, your potential, and your presence. You no longer tolerate situations that drain your spirit because your soul finally knows what it deserves. And then, the most powerful shift of all begins. The world responds to you differently, not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. Life rearranges itself around your new identity. Opportunities that once seemed impossible become available to you. People who were once unreachable begin to notice you. Rooms that once intimidated you now feel familiar. Challenges that once overwhelmed you now feel conquerable. Your reality expands because you expanded. This is the secret most people never learn. Your external reality is a reflection of your internal state. When you see yourself as small, life meets you with walls. When you see yourself as worthy, life meets you with doors. When you see yourself as capable, life meets you with pathways. When you see yourself as powerful, life meets you with opportunities that match that power. The universe is always responding to the energy you carry. When you rise internally, everything around you rises to meet you. You begin attracting people who match your new level of self-respect. People who value your voice, not silence it. People who appreciate your strength, not fear it. People who walk with their own sense of purpose and therefore do not feel threatened by yours. Your circle begins to change not because you forced anyone out, but because the old circle cannot breathe in the altitude of your new identity. Your environment changes too. You start gravitating toward places, activities, and routines that nourish your growth. You lose interest in drama, negativity, and chaos. You seek peace not because you are weak, but because your soul finally recognizes peace as its natural state. You start investing in yourself, your mental health, your skills, your goals, your dreams, and as you pour into yourself, the universe begins pouring back. Your reality rises because rising becomes your new way of being. You no longer shrink yourself to fit, you expand yourself to belong. You no longer wait for permission to grow. You grow because growth is who you are. You no longer fear losing people, you fear losing yourself. You no longer hold yourself back, you hold yourself up. And it is in this expanded version of you, this fuller, freer, braver version that life begins to reveal its real beauty. You start experiencing synchronicities, unexpected blessings, opportunities that line up perfectly with your growth, people who enter your life at exactly the right time, ideas that spark breakthroughs, clarity that removes confusion, and strength that shows you how much power you always had. Your reality is not something outside of your control. It is something that rises or falls with the standard you set for yourself. If you choose to shrink, life will give you a reality that matches your fear. If you choose to rise, life will give you a reality that matches your worth. The world does not treat you based on who you used to be. It treats you based on who you decide to become now. You are not meant to live a small life. You are not meant to dim yourself. You are not meant to disappear inside the expectations of others. You are meant to rise, and when you do, life rises with you. That is how powerful you truly are. 8. The moment you stop shrinking, you become impossible to ignore. There is a profound shift that happens when you finally stop holding yourself down, a shift so powerful that it alters not only the way you see yourself, but the way the world sees you. Most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid being too much, too loud, too confident, too emotional, too ambitious, too honest, too driven. So they shrink themselves into a version that feels safe, familiar, acceptable. They hide their gifts, they silence their voice, they abandon their potential, they pretend to be average just to blend in. And for years, even decades, they live in this small shell, believing this is who they are. But the moment you stop shrinking, everything changes. Your presence begins to carry a weight it never carried before. Not a heavy weight, but a magnetic one. A weight that comes from someone who finally remembers their own worth. A weight that comes from someone who no longer bends to fit into places they have outgrown. A weight that comes from someone who knows who they are and no longer apologizes for it. When you stop shrinking, you become someone people cannot easily overlook, because confidence has a vibration and authenticity has a frequency that naturally demands attention. This shift is not loud, it's not dramatic, it's not forced. It's quiet, internal, deeply rooted, and undeniable. People start to feel your presence differently. They look at you differently. They speak to you differently. They respond to you differently, not because they suddenly changed, but because you changed the way you show up in your own life. You begin to move like someone who belongs, not someone who's begging to fit in. You begin to speak like someone whose words have value, not someone trying to avoid judgment. You begin to act like someone who trusts themselves, not someone who is waiting for others to validate their choices. And this is when the world begins to reorganize around your new identity. People who once took you for granted suddenly start paying attention. People who dismissed your ideas begin to respect your opinions. People who overlooked you begin to recognize your potential. Opportunities that once felt impossible begin to align in your path. Doors that were closed start opening, not because those doors became easier, but because you became stronger. Life responds to the version of you that shows up. When you shrink, life shrinks with you. When you rise, life rises with you. And when you stop shrinking, life has no choice but to match your new energy. You also start to see yourself differently. You stop doubting your abilities because you finally give them space to express themselves. You stop questioning your worth because you finally feel the truth of it in your bones. You stop needing validation because you no longer outsource your identity to the opinions of others. Instead, you begin to trust your intuition, your decisions, your direction. Your self-respect grows, and with it, your courage. Your inner voice becomes louder than your fear. Your potential becomes more real than your excuses. Your dreams become more urgent than your distractions. But perhaps the most beautiful transformation is what happens to your inner peace. When you stop shrinking, your mind becomes quieter. The anxiety that came from constant self-comparison begins to fade. The stress that came from trying to please everyone begins to dissolve. The emotional exhaustion from living as a watered-down version of yourself starts to lift off your shoulders. You finally feel like you can breathe, not the shallow, survival-type breathing you've been doing for years, but deep, full, freeing breaths that come from being aligned with your authentic self. Of course, not everyone will celebrate your expansion. Some will feel threatened, some will misunderstand you, some will label you as changed, difficult, or arrogant. But here is the truth. Their reactions have nothing to do with your growth and everything to do with their fear of facing their own limitations. Your rising exposes their stagnation. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your authenticity exposes their masks. And instead of rising with you, they'll try to pull you back to the level where your presence didn't challenge them. Let them talk. Let them misunderstand. Let them fall away. Because every person who cannot stand beside the real you was never meant to walk with you into your future. Your expansion is not meant for everyone. Your growth is not meant to be universally comfortable. Your rising is not meant to be universally accepted. It is meant to be truthful. Truthful to who you really are, not who the world wanted you to pretend to be. And this is the secret few people understand. The moment you stop shrinking, you stop being forgettable. You stop being replaceable. You stop being invisible. You start showing the world the power you've been hiding. You start embodying the potential you once feared. You start becoming the person you always knew you could be, the person life was waiting for all along. And when this version of you steps forward, the universe does what it always does when someone claims their identity. It clears the path, opens the doors, rearranges the energy, and creates opportunities that align with your higher self. You are not meant to live small. You are not meant to stay hidden. You are not meant to dim your brightness to make others more comfortable. The moment you stop shrinking, you tap into the version of yourself that is impossible to overlook, impossible to silence, impossible to stop. Your real life begins the moment you expand. 9. You become unstoppable. The moment you stop asking for permission to be yourself, there is a silent prison that most people live in without realizing it. The prison of waiting. Waiting for approval, waiting for validation, waiting for permission to grow, waiting for someone to tell them that their ideas make sense, their dreams are worth pursuing, their voice matters, their opinions are acceptable, their goals aren't too ambitious. You wait and wait and wait, not realizing that every second you wait, you are giving your power away. You are placing your future in someone else's hands. You are surrendering control of your life to people who do not carry your vision, your dreams, or your destiny. But there comes a moment in your journey when you finally wake up to the truth. Nobody is coming to give you permission. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is coming to validate you. Nobody is coming to hand you the life you're dreaming of. The door was never locked. You just never pushed it open because you thought you needed someone else to say it was okay. The moment you stop shrinking and stop asking for permission to live as your full, authentic self is the moment you become unstoppable. Something shifts on a fundamental level inside you. You stop waiting for people to understand your vision before you start working on it. You stop waiting for people to agree with your decisions before making them. You stop seeking reassurance from people who will never see the world the way you do. Instead, you begin trusting yourself with a depth you have never felt before. Your confidence stops depending on applause. Your choices stop depending on acceptance. Your path stop depending on permission. You begin moving with a self-authority that comes from knowing you are responsible for your life, and no one else can lead it for you. And this is when your true power appears. When you stop asking for permission to be yourself, you start showing up in the world differently. Not aggressively, not arrogantly, simply with a sense of ownership over your identity. You stop apologizing for your strengths. You stop hiding your intuition. You stop watering down your personality to avoid standing out. You stop being afraid of offending people who never supported you anyway. You stop living like a shadow and start living like a force. People will notice this change immediately. Some will respect you more. Some will fear you. Some will be inspired by you. Some will distance themselves because they aren't comfortable with someone who isn't afraid to be real. But none of those reactions matter because you are no longer living for their reactions. You are living for your truth. And here is something you must understand deeply. The world does not reward the version of you that waits. It rewards the version of you that acts. It rewards the version of you that speaks up. It rewards the version of you that shows up. It rewards the version of you that stands tall. When you stop shrinking, you present yourself to life with a clarity and certainty that pulls opportunities toward you. You attract different people, different situations, different experiences, all because your energy no longer whispers, "I'm unsure." It now declares, "I'm ready." You stop tolerating relationships that drain you because you realize you don't need their approval to walk away. You stop fearing new beginnings because you finally trust your ability to build something better. You stop clinging to your past because you recognize it was only a smaller chapter of a much larger story. You stop apologizing for outgrowing environments that kept you limited. You stop giving explanations to people who don't deserve access to your direction. You stop justifying your choices to people who never supported your growth in the first place. And with every decision you make from this new place of self-authority, your life expands. You begin to feel stronger, lighter, clearer, more aligned, more awake. Your dream becomes more real because you finally gave yourself permission to chase it. Your mind becomes sharper because you no longer waste energy performing for others. Your soul becomes freer because it is no longer living in confinement. The truth is this: nobody can stop a person who no longer needs permission to be who they are. You become a force that cannot be manipulated by guilt, controlled by fear, or slowed down by other people's expectations. You become someone who chooses their own path, even if no one else understands it. You become someone who moves forward even when no one claps. You become someone who rises even when the world prefers you broken. You become unstoppable not because you are perfect, but because you are finally real. Your journey from shrinking to expanding is not just about achieving goals, it is about reclaiming your identity, your voice, your courage, your worth, and your power. The moment you stop waiting for someone to allow you to be yourself, the universe begins allowing you to become everything you are capable of. You were never meant to ask for permission to be the person you were born to be. You were meant to rise, and once you rise, nothing can push you back into the small life you outgrew. 10. Your entire life transforms the moment you decide you will no longer shrink for anyone. There comes a point in your journey when you finally understand something life has been whispering to you for years. Your reality is not shaped by your potential, your talent, or your dreams alone. It is shaped by your willingness to stop shrinking yourself to fit inside the limits other people drew for you. For most of your life, you were taught to make yourself small in subtle ways. You were rewarded for being quiet, compliant, easy, agreeable. You were praised for not taking up too much space, not asking for too much, not wanting too much. You were conditioned to believe that being low maintenance made you lovable, that being selfless meant abandoning your needs, and that being humble meant hiding your brilliance. And slowly, you began to believe that shrinking yourself was the only way to survive the world. You convinced yourself that keeping your head down was safer than rising, that staying invisible was easier than being seen, that dreaming small was more realistic than dreaming boldly. But the real truth is that every time you shrank, you stepped further away from the life meant for you. You dimmed the very light that was supposed to guide you. You weakened the voice that was supposed to direct you. You suffocated the potential that was supposed to carry you into a bigger destiny. But something remarkable happens the moment you decide you will no longer shrink. It is not just a mindset shift, it is a full transformation of your inner world. The moment you say, "No more," your spirit begins to rise in ways you have never felt before. You reclaim pieces of yourself you lost. You find clarity in places where confusion used to live. You feel strength in moments where you used to collapse. You begin to build a new identity, one that is rooted in the truth of who you are, not the expectations of who others want you to be. Your decisions become different. You stop choosing out of fear and start choosing from vision. You stop chasing people who never valued you and start attracting relationships that feel aligned with your soul. You stop tolerating disrespect you once excused. You stop bending your boundaries just to keep the peace. You recognize that peace built on self-betrayal was never real peace. It was exhaustion wearing a mask. You finally understand that shrinking yourself didn't protect you, it only delayed your growth. As you rise, you begin to see life from a higher perspective. The problems that once consumed, you shrink because you are no longer looking at them from the ground. The fears that once paralyzed, you lose their power because you now understand they were born from a version of you that no longer exists. The opinions of others stop controlling you because you finally realize how little they matter in the grand story of your life. You stop seeking external validation because internal alignment becomes your new compass. This is when your reality begins to shift in ways that feel almost surreal. The opportunities you once thought were beyond you begin appearing in your path, not because they suddenly became available, but because you finally became the person who can hold them. Life does not give extraordinary blessings to a shrinking mind. Life gives extraordinary blessings to a mind that has expanded beyond the limits of fear, doubt, insecurity, and approval-seeking. Your confidence becomes magnetic. Your voice becomes respected. Your presence becomes felt. You become someone who no longer asks, "What will they think?" but instead asks, "What do I want? What aligns with my purpose? What honors my truth?" And when that inner shift takes root, the world has no choice but to adjust to the new standard you carry. People who once dismissed you begin to reconsider. People who underestimated you begin to watch. People who thought you needed them begin to realize you never did. You stop living at the mercy of other people's moods, insecurities, and expectations. You finally step into the role of the creator of your reality instead of being a character in someone else's story. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. Your future expands because you expanded. Your relationships evolve because you evolved. Your opportunities multiply because your energy now matches the level of abundance you're seeking. Your entire life becomes a reflection of your decision to stop shrinking. And perhaps the most beautiful part of all, once you rise, once you reclaim yourself, once you remember your worth, there is no going back. You can never return to the version of you who accepted less, tolerated harm, apologized for existing, or begged for validation. That version of you served a purpose, but their time is done. You are no longer available for smallness. You are no longer available for self-abandonment. You are no longer available for shrinking to make others comfortable. Your life begins the moment you expand into your full truth. It begins when you stop dimming your light and start using it. It begins when you stop hiding your power and start owning it. It begins when you stop asking for permission and start giving yourself authority. It begins when you step forward as the person you were always meant to become. You were never meant to shrink. You were meant to rise loudly, boldly, unapologetically. And the moment you rise, your reality rises with you. At some point in life, you must make a decision that changes everything, not a loud decision, not a dramatic one, not one that anyone else needs to witness. It is a quiet declaration inside your own mind where you finally say, "I am done being small." That is the moment your life begins to shift in ways that feel almost supernatural. Because the truth is, everything you've ever wanted, the confidence, the opportunities, the relationships, the purpose, the clarity, the peace, was never waiting somewhere outside of you. It was waiting inside you, trapped behind the version of yourself that kept shrinking to survive. You spent years lowering your voice so others wouldn't feel threatened. You spent years lowering your standards so others could stay comfortable. You spent years lowering your dreams so others wouldn't call you unrealistic. You spent years lowering your expectations so disappointment wouldn't hurt as much. And without realizing it, you lowered your entire life, not because you were weak, but because you didn't yet understand your power. But now you do. Now you see the truth. You see that shrinking protected everyone but you. You see that shrinking gave everyone else permission to take advantage of your silence. You see that shrinking cost you opportunities, relationships, and years you will never get back. And in that realization, something inside you wakes up that cannot go back to sleep. You begin to rise, not for attention, not for validation, not for ego, but for survival of the person you were always meant to be. You rise because you're tired of carrying the weight of a life that was never yours. You rise because you're done abandoning yourself to be accepted. You rise because you finally understand that the world does not benefit from your smallness. It benefits from your authenticity, your courage, your gifts, your fire. And as you rise, your entire reality rises with you. You start attracting what matches your truth, not your fear. You start meeting people who respect your boundaries instead of crossing them. You start walking into rooms you once thought you were unworthy of. You start speaking in ways you once felt too insecure to express. You start becoming the version of yourself you dreamed of as a child. The version life tried to bury under pressure, expectations, trauma, and doubt. But the most powerful transformation is internal. You stop betraying yourself. You stop apologizing for your intensity. You stop hiding your dreams behind excuses. You stop letting other people's comfort dictate your destiny. You stop carrying relationships that require you to shrink. You stop living life on mute. And for the first time, you feel what freedom actually means. Not the freedom to do whatever you want, but the freedom to be who you are, without fear. That is the beginning of a different life. A life where you choose yourself without guilt, where you walk forward without hesitation, where your presence grows stronger, louder, brighter. This new life will cost you the old one. It will cost you people who preferred the smaller version of you. It will cost you old habits that kept you hidden. It will cost you the identity built on survival instead of self-respect. But what you gain, your voice, your worth, your purpose, your power, is worth everything you must let go. You were never meant to shrink. You were never meant to dim your light. You were never meant to play small just to be accepted. You were meant to rise so fully, so boldly, so unapologetically, that life cannot help but rise with you. So stop shrinking, stop dimming, stop hiding, stop betraying your brilliance just to fit into spaces that were never built for your greatness. The moment you stop holding yourself down, your real life begins. And once it begins, nothing and no one can stop the person you were born to become.